My name is Lieutenant Nova Rodriguez. I'm 28 years old, and I thought serving my country overseas would earn respect from my family until my sister looked at my credit report and said, "Nova won't know from overseas." What happened next proved that while I was risking my life in a combat zone to defend American freedoms, my own sister was destroying my financial future by opening credit cards, buying cars, and racking up massive debt using my identity because she thought I was too far away to stop her. Before I tell you how one phone call from the FBI changed everything my family thought they knew about identity theft consequences and how federal investigators exposed a fraud scheme so extensive it involved multiple states and federal crimes, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you want to hear how 3 words "federal investigation underway" silenced my entire family and made them realize they had harbored a criminal who targeted a deployed service member. Let me take you back to where this story really begins. I've been serving in the United States Army for 6 years, working my way up through the ranks to become a lieutenant in the military police. My work involves maintaining security and order on military bases, investigating crimes involving military personnel, and ensuring the safety of our troops and facilities. 2 years ago, I received orders for an 18-month deployment to Afghanistan, where I would be working with coalition forces to train Afghan police and military personnel in security protocols and criminal investigation techniques. The deployment was both professionally exciting and personally challenging. I was proud to serve my country in such an important mission, but leaving behind family and friends for 18 months was difficult. My sister Carmen, who is 26 years old, seemed particularly emotional about my deployment. "I'm going to miss you so much, Nova," Carmen told me during my farewell dinner. 18 months feels like forever. "I'll miss you too," I replied, "but we can stay in touch through video calls and messages." "It's not the same as having you here," Carmen said tearfully. "What if something happens and you're not around to help?" I was touched by Carmen's concern and promised to stay in communication as much as my mission schedule would allow. Carmen had always been the more emotional and dependent of the two of us. While I had chosen a career in military service that required discipline and independence, Carmen struggled with financial responsibility and often made impulsive decisions that created problems she needed help resolving. Over the years, I had helped Carmen out of various financial difficulties, paying her rent when she was short on money, covering her car insurance when she forgot to make payments, and even lending her money for emergencies that were usually the result of her poor financial planning. "You're so good with money and planning," Carmen would tell me. "I wish I could be more like you." I always tried to be supportive while also encouraging Carmen to develop better financial habits and take more responsibility for her decisions. Before deploying, I made sure all of my financial affairs were in order. I set up automatic payments for my bills, arranged for my mail to be forwarded to my parents' house, and gave Carmen and my parents emergency contact information in case they needed to reach me about anything urgent. "If anything important comes up, call me immediately," I told my family. "Even if it seems minor, I want to know what's happening at home." "We'll take care of everything," my parents assured me. "You focus on your mission and staying safe." Carmen also promised to help keep an eye on my affairs. "If any mail comes that looks important, I'll let you know right away," she said. I felt confident that my family would handle any issues that arose while I was overseas, and that I could focus on my military duties without worrying about problems at home. The deployment began in March, and for the first few months, everything seemed to be going well. I was settling into my responsibilities, training Afghan security personnel, my family was staying in regular contact, and I felt like I was making a meaningful contribution to the mission. Carmen called me regularly, updating me on family news and asking about my experiences overseas. During these calls, she often mentioned financial struggles she was having and hinted that she could use help with various expenses. "Money's been really tight since you left," Carmen would say. "I'm working 2 jobs, but it's still hard to make ends meet." "Are Mom and Dad helping you out?" I would ask. "They're helping some, but you know how they are about money," Carmen replied. "They think I should be more independent." I sent Carmen money several times during my deployment, wire transferring funds from my overseas account to help her with rent, car repairs, and other expenses she claimed were urgent. "You're saving my life, Nova," Carmen would say when I sent money. I don't know what I'd do without you looking out for me. I was happy to help my sister and felt good about being able to support my family even while serving overseas. But around month 6 of my deployment, I started noticing some concerning issues with my own financial accounts. When I tried to check my credit card balance online, the website showed that I had reached my credit limit on a card I rarely used. This seemed strange because I had automatic payments set up and my military pay was being deposited regularly. I called the credit card company from my base in Afghanistan to inquire about the unexpected charges. Lieutenant Rodriguez, your account shows several large purchases over the past few months, the customer service representative explained. Most recently, there was a 3-0 charge at an electronics store and a 2-500 charge at a furniture store. I haven't made any purchases like that, I said, confused. I'm deployed overseas. I don't have access to American stores. The purchases were made with your physical credit card in various locations across Texas, the representative continued. That's impossible, I replied. My credit cards are with me in Afghanistan. I checked my wallet and confirmed that all of my credit cards were in my possession. Someone was using credit cards in my name without my knowledge. I need to report this as fraudulent activity, I told the customer service representative. We'll start a fraud investigation immediately, she assured me. In the meantime, we'll freeze your account to prevent further unauthorized charges. Over the next few days, I discovered that the fraudulent activity wasn't limited to one credit card. Someone had been using my identity to open new credit accounts, make large purchases, and even apply for loans. The scope of the identity theft was staggering. 12 different credit cards had been opened in my name, totaling over 45,000 in fraudulent debt. A car loan had been taken out for 28,000, and several personal loans added another 15,000 to the total. Someone had stolen my identity and racked up nearly 90,000 in debt while I was serving my country overseas. The most disturbing aspect was that whoever was committing this fraud had access to detailed personal information about me: my social security number, my mother's maiden name, my previous addresses, and even my military service details. This wasn't a random identity thief who had somehow obtained my basic information. This was someone who knew me personally and had access to confidential details about my life and background. I immediately contacted the 3 major credit bureaus to place fraud alerts on my accounts and began the process of disputing the fraudulent charges. But the investigation process was complicated by the fact that I was deployed overseas with limited communication access and couldn't easily provide in-person verification or documentation that the fraud investigators required. Lieutenant Rodriguez, we need you to visit one of our branch offices to verify your identity and sign affidavits about the fraudulent accounts, one credit company representative told me. I'm deployed in Afghanistan, I explained. I won't be back in the United States for another year. Unfortunately, we can't process fraud disputes without in-person verification, the representative replied. I was stuck in a bureaucratic nightmare. My identity had been stolen and my credit was being destroyed. But I couldn't resolve the situation because I was serving overseas and couldn't physically appear at financial institutions. This is when I decided to contact my family for help with handling the fraud investigation from the United States. Mom, I need your help with something serious, I told my mother during our next scheduled call. Someone has stolen my identity and opened credit cards in my name. Oh no, that's terrible, Mom replied. How did that happen? I don't know yet, but I need someone to help me deal with the credit companies and fraud investigations while I'm deployed. Of course we'll help, Mom assured me. What do you need us to do? I explained the situation and asked my parents to help coordinate with fraud investigators and credit companies on my behalf. I'll also ask Carmen to help, Mom suggested. She's been handling some of your mail and might have noticed something suspicious. That seemed like a good idea. Carmen had been helping with my mail and might have insights into how someone had gained access to my personal information. When I called Carmen to ask for her help with the identity theft investigation, her reaction was strange. Identity theft? That's crazy, Carmen said, but her voice sounded nervous rather than surprised. Carmen, I need your help figuring out how someone got access to my personal information, I explained. You've been helping with my mail. Did you notice anything unusual? No, nothing unusual, Carmen replied quickly. Just the normal bills and junk mail. The fraud started about 6 months ago, I continued. Do you remember if there were any credit card offers or financial documents that came to Mom and Dad's house around that time? I don't really remember, Carmen said vaguely. There's always so much mail. Carmen's responses seemed evasive, and I got the feeling she wasn't telling me everything she knew about the situation. Over the next few weeks, I worked with military legal assistance officers to coordinate the fraud investigation from overseas. The process was slow and frustrating, but gradually we began to piece together information about how the identity theft had occurred. The fraud investigators discovered that the identity thief had used my forwarded mail address, my parents' house, as a starting point for gathering personal information, then had systematically applied for new credit accounts using a combination of my real information and false addresses. Whoever did this had access to your social security number, your previous addresses, and detailed information about your military service. The fraud investigator explained during one of our calls. This level of personal information suggests that the perpetrator either knows you personally or had access to confidential documents containing your background information. The investigation was focusing on people who had access to my personal information and could have used my parents' address to intercept financial documents. 3 months into the fraud investigation, I received a call that changed everything. Lieutenant Rodriguez, this is Special Agent Sarah Chen with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, the caller said. We need to speak with you about identity theft crimes that have been committed using your personal information. My heart started racing. The FBI was involved in my case. Agent Chen, I've been working with fraud investigators for months, I said. Has there been a development in my case? There has been a significant development, Agent Chen replied. We've identified the person who has been using your identity to commit financial fraud. Who is it? I asked, though I was starting to have a terrible suspicion. The perpetrator is Carmen Rodriguez, your sister, Agent Chen said. We have evidence that she has been systematically using your identity to open credit accounts and make fraudulent purchases over the past 8 months. Even though I had begun to suspect Carmen based on her evasive responses, hearing it confirmed by the FBI was devastating. Are you certain it's Carmen? I asked. We have security camera footage of Carmen Rodriguez using credit cards in your name at multiple retail locations, Agent Chen explained. We also have documentation showing that she used your social security number and personal information to open 12 different credit accounts. Additionally, Agent Chen continued, we have evidence that Carmen Rodriguez purchased a 2023 Honda Civic using a fraudulent car loan in your name. The vehicle is currently registered to an address where she lives. The scope of Carmen's crimes was even larger than I had realized. She hadn't just stolen my identity, she had used it to build an entire fraudulent financial life. Agent Chen, what are the legal consequences for identity theft of this magnitude? I asked. Identity theft involving a deployed service member is a federal crime with enhanced penalties. Agent Chen explained. The total fraudulent debt exceeds 90, which classifies this as aggravated identity theft. Carmen Rodriguez is facing charges that could result in 10 to 15 years in federal prison, plus restitution for all fraudulent debts and damages. The FBI had been investigating Carmen for months, building a comprehensive case that documented her systematic theft of my identity and financial fraud. We wanted to complete our investigation before contacting you because we needed to ensure we had sufficient evidence to prosecute successfully, Agent Chen continued. Carmen Rodriguez will be arrested within the next 48 hours. Given that you're deployed overseas, we'll coordinate with military legal services to ensure your testimony can be provided remotely. 2 days later, Carmen was arrested at her apartment on federal charges of identity theft, wire fraud, and financial crimes targeting a deployed service member. The news of her arrest shocked my family and revealed the full extent of her deception. I can't believe Carmen would do this to you, my mother said during an emergency phone call after Carmen's arrest. She seemed so worried about you and supportive of your deployment. Mom, Carmen was using my deployment as cover for stealing my identity, I explained. She knew I would be overseas with limited access to monitor my financial accounts. The FBI investigation revealed that Carmen had planned her identity theft scheme specifically around my deployment schedule. Carmen Rodriguez began applying for fraudulent credit accounts within 2 weeks of her sister's deployment, the FBI report stated. She used her access to Lieutenant Rodriguez's forwarded mail to gather additional personal information and intercept credit cards and financial documents. Rodriguez also told creditors that Lieutenant Rodriguez had given her power of attorney to handle financial matters during the deployment, which was false. Carmen had been living off of fraudulent credit for 8 months, buying expensive electronics, furniture, clothing, and even a new car, all while accepting money that I was sending her to help with her claimed financial difficulties. The cruelest aspect of Carmen's crimes was that she had continued asking me for financial help even while stealing tens of thousands of dollars using my identity. She was double-dipping, Agent Chen explained. She was both stealing from you through identity theft and manipulating you into sending additional money by claiming financial hardship. The money you sent to help your sister was essentially funding her ability to commit more crimes against you. Carmen had been using my own generosity and concern for her well-being to facilitate her theft of my identity and destruction of my financial future. The legal proceedings moved quickly once Carmen was arrested. The evidence against her was overwhelming: security camera footage, financial records, forged documents, and a paper trail that clearly showed her systematic theft of my identity. Carmen initially tried to claim that she had my permission to use my identity for financial transactions, but this defense collapsed when investigators pointed out that I had been filing fraud reports against the very accounts she had opened. Ms. Rodriguez claimed that Lieutenant Rodriguez had given her authorization to use her credit, the prosecutor explained during the court proceedings. However, Lieutenant Rodriguez had been actively disputing these accounts as fraudulent for months, which contradicts any claim of authorization. Carmen eventually pleaded guilty to all charges in exchange for a reduced sentence, though the reduction was minimal given the severity and systematic nature of her crimes. She was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison, ordered to pay full restitution of $90,000 plus interest and penalties, and banned from accessing any financial accounts or credit for 10 years after her release. But the most satisfying part of the justice system's response came when I learned about the additional consequences Carmen faced. Lieutenant Rodriguez, you should know that your sister's crimes have had broader consequences beyond her criminal prosecution, my military legal assistance officer informed me. What kind of broader consequences? I asked. Identity theft targeting deployed service members is considered a particularly serious offense that damages military readiness and morale, the legal officer explained. The Department of Defense has referred this case to federal agencies responsible for protecting military personnel from financial crimes, which has resulted in enhanced monitoring and prosecution of similar cases. Carmen's crimes against me had contributed to strengthening protections for all deployed service members, ensuring that other military families wouldn't face the same kind of systematic identity theft that I had experienced. The most important lesson I learned from this experience is that identity theft by family members is often more damaging than theft by strangers, because family members have access to detailed personal information and can exploit trust relationships to commit more extensive fraud. Carmen's systematic theft was enabled by my trust in her and my willingness to share personal information with someone I thought was looking out for my interests. I also learned that the legal system provides enhanced protections for military service members, particularly those deployed overseas who are vulnerable to financial crimes due to their limited ability to monitor their accounts and respond to fraud. The woman whose sister said she won't know from overseas learned that the FBI takes identity theft targeting deployed service members very seriously, and that federal investigators can track down criminals even when they think distance and deployment provide perfect cover. And the sister who thought she could destroy a soldier's financial future while she served overseas learned that identity theft carries severe federal penalties, especially when it targets military personnel who are sacrificing to serve their country. Today, I've completed my deployment and returned home with my financial accounts fully restored and my credit repaired through the fraud investigation process. Carmen is serving her 12-year federal sentence and will be required to pay restitution for decades after her release, ensuring that her crimes carry lifelong consequences. The experience taught me to be more protective of my personal information and to recognize that even family members can exploit trust for criminal purposes when they believe they can avoid consequences. Sometimes the people who claim to miss you the most are the ones who see your absence as an opportunity to betray your trust and steal your future. Have you ever discovered that family members were exploiting your trust for financial gain? How do you protect your identity when you're far from home and vulnerable to fraud? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about family betrayal, identity theft, and learning that federal law enforcement takes crimes against service members very seriously.